So this lecture will be just a walkthrough of maybe a possible DOK4 level question. And as I talked about, at least in one of the classes, when I differentiate between a DOK3 and a DOK4, it's not so much that you're going to be asked to do more. You're going to be asked to maybe know more without the benefit of being provided a step-by-step list of instructions that you need to follow. So this is an example that, again, pulled right from the book, and one of the classes we did talk about it, but we didn't go through it, so this is what we're going to do here. And it's these vague directions right here. It's this kind of using appropriate graphical displays and summary statistics. Write a report on the changes of prison populations. Well, report is a bit of a misnomer, but for what they're looking for. But it's this idea of looking at the data. You're being given the raw data, and you need to know what to do with it, not because I'm being told to make a histogram or a stem and leaf or a dot plot, and I should find the mean or the median or what have you. You have to look at the data and know what to do without being told. And it might not seem like a big deal, but that's the difference, really. When we looked at the AP test, the questions are going to be phrased this way. Now, given this one here, as I walk through, if I were to look at this one, appropriate graphical displays, given the fact that we're dealing with quantitative data, we've got our choices, right? We've got choices of histogram, stem and leaf, and a dot plot. Now, I would take the dot plot right out of play, given the variety of the numbers. I mean, we go from negative 0.16 to 11.9. If we're doing a dot plot, I think we'd have to be dealing with every number between, by tenths, between negative 1.6 to 11.9. So that would be really kind of a cumbersome thing. But because we don't have a lot of repeaters here, we have some, but not many. So really a histogram or a stem and leaf. And in my opinion, given the fact that there's only 21 values, I think a stem and leaf is totally reasonable. But you're more than welcome to do a histogram. I did a stem and leaf, as I'm about to reveal here. And if you watch the other lecture on this from the previous, on the DOK3 with the horsepower of cars, this will look kind of similar here. But this is a situation. This is what the stem and leaf would look like. And again, this is not a situation where you need to do any split stem. We've got enough cases here. We go from negative 1 point somethings to all the way to 11.9. So we don't need to split them. We've got enough variation in our percentages that we don't need to split them. We've got enough to establish shape and any gaps and any unusual values, that sort of thing, which is kind of what we're looking for when we are doing these graphs. As always, include what it is, describe what it is that you're looking at as specifically as you can, right? Percent of changes in federal prison populations. Put some sort of key. This is a little different because it's the 2/0 is the slash is essentially the decimal point, and we're dealing with percentages, so people know what we're looking at here. Besides not only saying it percent, you actually show it. Right? And then again, it's just a matter of this one is a little easier to keep track of. There's only 21. And the negative ones there's only 4 of them. There's one that's 0, but you do want to have that, right? You have to have the 0 as a possibility, and a negative 0, which seems kind of silly mathematically, but it's you would need it because if there was a growth of say 0.7%. it would fall under this one here, not this one here. So you do need both the 0 and the negative 0, even though it seems mathematically a little ridiculous. And then we have just everything else is where we have it. Right? And then we want to write a report, which is basically to say keep it in context, which is what we should be doing anyway. So the report, quote unquote, might look like this. In 2005, the median increase in federal prison populations was 2.3%, with an IQR of 5.55 to 5.55. So again, this is Sorry about that. They came on the all-call right over our head and screamed at us. So anyway, the 2.3, you can come up, when you have it in the stem and leaf, you can come up with it as just saying, okay, well, there are 21 values, so the 11th one would be our exact middle. So remember, you got to go backwards here in the negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 2.3. There's our median right there. Right, that's where that came from. And then we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're looking between the 5th and the 6th. So that's between 0 and 1.1. So that's where that lower half came for the IQR, and then the 5.5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you're looking at halfway between 5.5 and 5.6. So that's 5.55. That's where they came from, right? It is skewed, and we say that later on, but it's unimodal skewed right. So that's why we're going with the median and the IQR. Now, if you had decided to say this was unimodal symmetric, that's your call. It's not. You might look at this and say, well, it's not skewed enough, and it's only an outlier, and it's okay. If you decided mean was the way to go, which I wouldn't have, but at the very least, if you had gone with mean, make sure you calculate what the mean is, which is harder to do from the graph itself, and the standard deviation. Okay, at least you have to be consistent within your own response. Right? If you say unimodal skewed either way, you should be referencing median and IQR. Right? Because that's how they coordinate with each other there. There are some values that show decrease, so that's an interesting point. If there are points of interest, you want to speak to them. Not huge decreases, but decreases nonetheless. And then there is a gap from 7.9 to a possible outlier of 11.9. This is a kind of 2 for 1 there. I spoke to the gap and identified a possible outlier, which is always we have not done that yet. We haven't established whether it actually is or not. It probably will be, as we'll come to find out, right? But so until I can say definitively, I'm going to call it a possible outlier or potential outlier, and I named it at 11.9, South Dakota, right? And if you want to add a little more, give of a report, like even without this possible outlier, evidence would indicate the population of federal prisons may be growing. You're not saying it is growing. It may be growing. And again, none of that is laid out in the question. None of that is laid out in the question. It's not a matter of a DOK4 is now calculus compared to statistics in DOK3. It's just, can you do it without being prompted? And can you distinguish independently this type or that type? Right? So the process isn't all that hard. There's really no difference between something being told outright, okay, make a stem and leaf, and then make an appropriate graphical display. However, that's sometimes the difference. And if you have a question like this and you need to come up and say, is this what I should be doing here? I'm not going to answer you. Right? I won't answer you until I'm actually grading it. If you need me to answer you, then I'm not, then that's probably going to take PD off the table, right? Because how distinct is that thing, your understanding, if you need that confirmation. Okay. So that's again, that this would probably qualify as a DOK 4. Could you have done this with a histogram? Absolutely. You could have plugged all this into the calculator. You could have come up with the histogram and kind of sketched it out from there. My feeling on these is if it's a small number like 21, it's just as easy to do it out by hand as a stem and leaf. But that's me. That's your decision to make. Either of them would be appropriate graphical displays. I hope this helped a little bit, both with your stem and leaf and maybe furthering your understanding of the differentiating between DOK 4 and DOK 3, depth of knowledge 4, depth of knowledge 3. Please let me know if you have any questions. Hope this helped.